Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshak if you want to call me by my in-game name, and we've got some more of those sweet on-grow cards to go over. We have a little bit more cards to go over today than normal because I haven't been feeling well, hence not streaming the past couple days, and I'll try to cover as many or all of them as possible, but hopefully my voice can hang out. Until then, I'm literally doing my best trying not to die right now. So the first card we're going to cover is going to be a Paladin. I don't even want to attempt to say his name right now with what's going on with my throat. And no. He's a 2-drop, 2/2 Murloc Battlecry. Discover a secret. This is interesting because it's in Paladins, and Paladin secrets... it's just discover a secret. It doesn't pull it from your deck. Okay, so it's a Paladin secret that you're going to discover. You have between 3 of them. As we know, Paladin secrets are worth 1 mana, but depending on which one you pick in the situation that you're, given at this certain time, there's definitely a merit to picking, like, let's say there's a noble sacrifice versus like a redemption, right? Depending on what the opponent's field is looking like and what your field is looking like. Plus the fact that this is a Murloc, you're most likely playing some sort of Paladin early game Murloc synergy, so having those 1 mana secrets could in fact be pretty powerful to the, your board, given that you're running a pretty aggressive base deck. And the Paladin secrets, I wouldn't say are game winners, more so than very annoying kind of things your opponent has to deal with, and especially when, you don't... This discovers it, so you pick it, so they have to guess which one you've picked at that time. So I can see a little juke outs going. So I like the card. I like that it's a Murloc. Definitely, they pushed a lot of Murlocs this expansion, which towards the when we hit the Shaman cards, we'll get to the Big Bang Murlocs, as we like to call them, the Big Dick Swingers. But not too much to this card. It's kind of the direction I think secrets would go in, right? Like I figured, I think this would be like a cooler mage card than anything, right? Like a 4-drop 3/3 discover a secret, and then it kind of goes well with the mage whole package, and then the paladins is kind of like dwindled out. But either way, still cool card nonetheless. Lost in the Jungle, a 1-drop summon 2/1/1 Silverhand recruits. So this is a card that's basically, I don't want to call it like a bad muster for battle because they're 2 different cards. Muster for battle costs 3 and summon 3 recruits, and you got a weapon, which was incredibly broken. This is more so a 1 mana summon, basically a 2/2, which a lot of classes have. Look at druids, they have that Raven. Look at Mistress and Mixtures and stuff like that. But the problem with Paladin, and the reason there's not mid-range Paladin around, is the fact that there's not a whole lot of synergies in between the Paladin hero power and buffing them, like when the Quartermaster was around. For those of you who remember those days, a Quartermaster gave basically all of your Silverhand recruits +2/+2. You run Muster for Battle, Justicar, Trueheart in the deck, and all of a sudden you've got, sometimes anywhere between 2 to 5, Silverhand recruits on the field. You buff them all up, you do big things. But unfortunately, there hasn't really been that big Silverhand recruit maker, like creator, and or buffer, right? There's been a couple here and there, but nothing to really make you want to play that class a whole lot, right? So I think they're going to start heading back in the direction of making the Paladins tokens and buffing those tokens, and then, synergies within the hero power and buffing them for this next expansion to kind of bring back the mid-range Paladin. Oh god, my voice is dying again. So yeah, not too much to this card, but I think we're going to see a lot more stuff like it. Next one is going to be the Rogue Legendary, guys. The Rogue Legendary. There's a lot of controversy to this card, and I can understand why. I'll try to explain it the best I possibly can. Oh, did I actually get rid of the logo? Oh, gosh. Oh, God. Production. The Caverns Below. It's the quest. Play 4 minions with the same name. Reward a Crystal Core. And the Crystal Core, hopefully Rob put it in there. Did I fuck up? No, I didn't. You hold on. Production value is 100% right now. Crystal Core. For the rest of the game, your minions are 5/5. So what this means is, there was a funny flowchart on Reddit about it. It was basically, do you summon a minion? Yes. Goes down. It's a 5/5. If you play a spell and the spell summons a minion, is it 5/5? No. So if you play a minion, it's a 5/5. If you're summoning minion through tokens or anything like that, it doesn't count. If you get a death rattle, and it like kind of pops from a death rattle, I believe that'll also count it as a 5/5 because you're summoning a new minion. But like, let's say you get the point. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I really don't know where this fits with the Rogue, the entire Rogue package, right? Rogue has been it's been having an identity crisis, right? Well, they kind of pushed towards a stealthy mechanic, then they pushed towards the miracle mechanic of like the auctioneer and all this stuff, and then Then there's like that burgle mechanic where everything was stealing people's cards, which is basically what the priest is gonna do, but then the rogue started doing it. And then now it's for the rest of the game, your minions are 5/5. Like, what is this? What is this? What are you trying to do to me? Where are you bringing out the? Where's the rogue in here? Rogues are stealthy. We're not trying to play a bunch of minions and beat our opponent down with some, mediocre big dick swingers. Rogue has been stealthy, steal some shit, which makes sense, but like more so than not, I just don't see where this fits the core of what Rogue is trying to do. I see this being like a druid, or maybe a paladin thing where you get to play, your tokens in their 5/5s. That makes sense. But in Rogue, it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out, right? The next one's going to be Mimic Pod, and it's draw a card, then add a copy of it to your hand. So very similar to Tea Time, which we've seen in Ultimate Value Rogue. This will definitely be found in the updated Ultimate Value Rogue once the new cards are released. But overall, pretty value card. It reminds me a lot of Arcane Intellect, right? So instead of drawing 2 cards, you're basically just drawing 1, but you get a duplicate of that card, which goes along with the Rogue Legendary, which is play duplicates of the same card, if I actually read that correctly. I'm not feeling too good, guys, so my brain's not working. Yeah, play 4 minions with the same name. So basically, the Mimic Pod just goes right along with that, with creating minions of the same name, so you could be able to get that quest off as soon as possible. Oh, man. Yeah. I think it's a good card, definitely going to be found in any Rogue. The decks that are going to be running the whole Mimic thing with the Legendary, they're going to be running the Mimic Pod, right? I actually like this next card a lot. It's the 5-drop 3/4 combo Destroy a Minion. So as we've seen, I don't want to say a power creep because that's not the right word, but Hearthstone is coming to a point where decks aren't running, like even Shaman right now. Some Shaman decks don't even run Hex, guys. So being able to destroy a big minion that your opponent plays, which Rogue has been unable to do for quite some time. Like, Rogue has Assassinate, but no one uses Assassinate. So this is basically a creature with Assassinate built into it, and for the combo you get 3/4, if that makes sense. So they basically just took the Assassinate and just reversed it with a creature. Which I think this would definitely be playable. Probably not a 2 of, maybe a 1 of, or maybe it's found in some tempo Rogue deck where there is 2 of them, and this is like, it caps out at the Slayer. I'm not sure, but combo Destroy a Minion, that's huge. Like, this is good stuff right here for the Rogue class, especially due to the fact that they've lacked removal for quite some time. Or at least, they haven't lacked removal, they just don't... hasn't been effective enough to work. Like Assassinate, no, and then you got like Blade of Cthulhu, which is a 9-drop Destroy a Minion, but you don't play that anything other than Cthulhu deck. And since when was Cthulhu Rogue a thing? Like, it was a meme deck, but it was never something super good. We have the Warden here, the 5-drop 3/5 Battle Cry. Draw 2 1-cost minions from your deck. Interesting. So as we know, Rogue has had a really difficult time with draw. Forever, since the early stages of Rogue, early stages of Hunter. We see stuff like, the King's Elic that was able to Battle Cry, pull a creature from your deck. We saw cards like Quick Shot, if you have no cards in your hand, draw 1 off the top. And we also saw cards like the Camel, which was able to pull a 1-drop from the deck. So this is kind of going along the same lines of being able to generate value. Not insane value from drawing, but just being able to get some of those really bad top decks out of the way. So, you're heading into turn 6, 7, 8, and you're in a Hunter deck, and you top deck a 1-drop, like whatever that kitty card is, 1-drop, 1/1, Battle Cry, summon another kitty, or whatever the hell that card is. That's just a really bad draw at turn 6, 7, and 8 when Hunter can't draw anymore. It's not like Hunters have Arcane Intellect and hero power with like a life tap ability, right? It's just whatever the Hunter gets off the top, that's what they're going with. But if they give Hunter draw, like real draw, like Arcane Intellect and stuff like that, they're starting to get into like mixing too many class abilities with one, right? They don't want to give one class everything, which they've done to Shaman, and we see what happens when they do that. So they're being very careful with Hunter here, saying, you know what, let's give them draw, but let's give them draw to an extent where we give them only 1-cost minions, so they don't. It's not super good, but it also takes away. Not only do you get the 1-drop minions now, which are good for synergizing with Beast, if you're trying to you draw a 1-drop, then you have a Houndmaster in your hand, you get the beast synergy there, because for 5 mana, if you get a 1-drop beast, it works there. But it also takes out the magnitude of drawing really bad top decks after this guy's played, which I think is pretty useful. So again, maybe not a 2 of, maybe a 1 of. It could be a 2 of, who knows? It's really hard to say how the decks are going to pan out before playing with any of these cards yet. But I definitely think this guy is not as bad as what, your first looks at him are. Next card, super cool. So we have the Hunter Legendary Quest, and it says quest, play 7 1-cost minions. Again, going along with exactly, oh gosh, we need water. Sorry guys, I'm doing my best. That's all I can ever tell you I'm doing. All right, so play 7 1-cost minions. We saw the card prior to that, synergizing with the 1-drop minions, and it reward Queen Carnassa. Rob, what the hell's a Queen Carnassa? I got you, Queen Carnassa. Here she is. A 5-drop 8/8 beast. Wow, Rob, fantastic. Yes, she is. Battle Cry. Shuffle 15 raptors into your deck. 15 raptors. It's a lot of raptors. Rob, what is a raptor? No problem, guys. I got you right here. This is a raptor. 1-drop 3/2 beast. Battle Cry. Draw a card. Hello. How are you doing? This is big. This is big stuff right here. I think mid-range Hunter is coming back with a force. I mean, it's just this is just powerful stuff right here if you can start pulling it off. But the problem is Hunter has no healing. So I guess the whole point of basically beating this deck would be running an aggressive deck where they don't have the chance to put all these cool cards and draw mechanics like we see here. Battle Cry, draw a card. So you essentially just go broad into broad into broad, and you filled up a board of beasts, and they clear your board, and then you just top deck another broad, and you just keep playing it over and over and over again, and you always have a board of 3/2 beasts, and if you're not winning by then, I don't know what's happening. Plus the original card's a 5-drop 8/8, so it's just huge stuff. The next one's going to be, so I didn't have to really explain too much there. The card's going to be good. It's obviously going to be tested, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of crazy things coming from that guy. So we're going over to Priest, where we have the 3-drop 2/3 Mirage Caller. It's Battle Cry, choose a friendly minion, summon a 1/1 copy of it. This is, for stat-wise, not the best. 2/3 for 3 is not huge, but you're not playing this for his stats. You're playing him for his stat. I guess half his stats, half his ability. So you have cards like, I want to say Sylvanas, but she's not going to be in the rotation anymore. So I have to think of another go-to card when thinking of a really good card to copy. And another card I would think about copying is Rag, but as we know, that's also leaving us. So we'll have to, as a community effort, go to like a go-to card that we're always looking to make copies of, right? So off the top of my head, I can't think of anything early on in the Priest deck besides the new 1-drop or the 2-drop 1/1 Death Rattle. Copy a card from your opponent's deck, obviously. In combination with this is pretty nice, but the fact that we think a 2-drop 1/1 is going to live past turn 2 is highly unlikely. So, but if it does, you can combo this with cards after turn 3, so that I'm sure we'll see some other good Death Rattles coming from Priest that this is going to copy. This is probably going to be a 2 of, and any control Priest deck, given the amount of Death Rattles they're most likely going to run because of their legendary quest. So I think this is going to be one of those cards that we're going to find that's going to be exceedingly annoying if we do not kill those Death Rattle cards from the Priest, which normally Death Rattle cards killing them doesn't do too much because their Death Rattle does something else that we have to deal with. So there's like, maybe Silence will be something that really pops up during this expansion that people will actually go out of their way to put in their deck, given the cards that we've seen thus far. So we have a 3-drop 3/3 Curious Glimmerroot. Battle Cry. Look at 3 cards. Guess which one started in your opponent's deck to get a copy of it. Wow. So, without playing with this card, I'm not sure how the mechanic is going to work. Like, look at 3 cards, and then guess which will start your opponent's deck. So we'll have to play it a couple times to get the hang of like how it's going to work. And I understand the mechanic. You look at 3 cards, and if you pick the right one, you get it. I understand that part, guys. But just like how it's going to interact with when we play it and kind of what it picks, right? It's like, oh, it gave us a Lightning Storm. We knew our opponent played a Lightning Storm. So it's like, how do we decide upon that, right? So it'll be interesting. I think Good players will be able to remember and kind of deduce the correct card better than the players who don't really pay attention to their plays as much, which kind of allows the better player to maybe get a higher chance of being able to copy a card. I mean, obviously you're playing this card to copy a card. You're generating a card from this card. But the problem is you don't get to pick the card. You're picking the card. Like you do get to pick the card, but the card it gives you don't pick. Like Discover mechanic, you pick one of the three. This is just saying here's 3 cards. If you get the right one, you get that one, but that one may not be a very good card, if you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of, this is a chancy card. So cool. Mana Bind. I read this card when I was actually before loading it up, and I thought about it, and I couldn't think of anything better. I'll go into this for a second. So we got the 3-drop Mana Bind secret. When your opponent casts a spell, add a copy of it to your hand that costs 0. So I preferably just like Counterspell, because it just says you play a spell and I say no. This says your opponent plays a spell, you say okay, and then you take that spell and it costs 0. A lot of the better players will play around Counterspell by playing a cheaper cost spell first. So they'll play around Mana Bind the same way. They'll play a really cheap, non-good spell, and then you're just going to copy that, and it's not going to be good for you either. So if you're going to do something with a cheap spell, why wouldn't you just not allow them to play it, right? So I guess it just adds another kind of depth to the secret in the mage class, and it's not terrible, don't get me wrong. I think this is better than Potion of Polymorph. But at the same time, like if you're looking to be protected, you're at 4, 5, 6 health, and you're trying to stop your opponent from fireballing you in the face, and you play a Mana Bind and they fireball you. You generated a fireball that you didn't need. You didn't stop shit. You took that fireball right to the dome. You didn't bind anything. Counterspell, on the other hand, just says, no, you don't get to do that. No way, Jose. So, I think the card is cool. I like it. I like that, just continuing to put a lot of secrets in the mage class. So maybe Secret Mage can be actually a really plausible deck to play, not due to the power level of the secrets, but due to the fact that your opponent doesn't know how to play around the secrets, which is where our super secret Reno Mage really takes advantage of people. You start playing 2, 3 secrets on the board, and all of a sudden your opponent starts freaking the fuck out. I mean, you can just see it in their plays. They just start playing absolutely atrocious. So we'll see how that all pans out. We'll see what more stuff comes our way later on in the expansion. 5-drop, Living Mana. Transform your mana crystals into 2/2 minions. Recover the mana when they die. Wow, we haven't seen anything like this before. I really like the picture as well. Let me get a drink and think about this. So the question here is, do these minions have Death Rattle? Is it Death Rattle, return a mana crystal to yourself? And it's really hard to say how good this is going to be without seeing the remainder of the cards, because there's so many cards leaving us. There's 3 sets leaving and 1 joining. So, I mean, this meta, guys, is going to be absolutely nuts. We're talking, this is going to be big changes. So it is exceedingly hard to say what is going to be good, what is going to be bad, and who's going to be playing what. So I would have to say this is one of those cards that's either going to be there and it's going to see light, or this card is never going to see light. It's going to be held away somewhere deep in your collection, and it's probably going to get dusted. That would be my kind of assumption for it. But if these creatures have Death Rattle, then I assume maybe Token Druid could take advantage of something like this. But the problem is, you're giving up all your mana to some of these 2/2s that, can attack and stuff, but you're losing all of the mana. So, like, say your opponent doesn't kill, like, let's say you summon 3, you play this on turn 5, and, you basically have 10 damage on the board, and your opponent kills 2 of them, and then I don't know. We'll have to see, guys. This is a tricky card to rate. Corrupting Mist, 2 mana, corrupt every minion, destroy them at the start of your turn. Another really cool picture, nonetheless. As we know, corruption costs 1 mana, and you choose the creature, and then it dies at the start of your next turn. And this basically does it to the entire board. So obviously used in some form of control, maybe late game warlock deck. where you basically are not playing a whole lot of minions at the beginning of the game. So let's say your opponent plays, 2 or 3 mediocre sized minions. You can afford to take the damage because you run heal in the deck, and you basically go 1 for 3 with this card. I think it might be a 1 of, could be a 2 of, and maybe a control warlock list, but we'll have to see. Cool card. I like the continuation of corrupting in different ways. I mean, it's a warlock class, for God's sake. We need to see corruption. We need to see horror. We need to see things undead. We need to see some discard some shit. You know what I'm saying? So warlock has a lot to be added onto the class, in my opinion, regarding like it's just class identity. So I think this kind of follows the warlock path. Molten Blade. This is the first good warrior card that we've seen in quite some time that is a weapon. We have a 1-drop 1/1, in my opinion. The Molten Blade. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a new weapon. Most of the weapons in Hearthstone, if we can remember Malkarok, most of the time you're going to get a average weapon, and by average we're talking like Fiery War Axe, King's Defender, things like that. Decent weapons. Let's just say you have a higher chance of getting average or better than you're getting worse. And if you get worse, you just essentially wait a turn for something to get better. So I think this card, for the most part, it's going to be a 1 of, or maybe even a 2 of. Who knows? Depends on kind of how the warrior decks pan out. But I like it's rare too, so it's pretty accessible for those of you players who can't afford. Warrior has been known to be one of the most expensive decks you can build, control warrior. But with cards like Molten Blade that are just a rare, it won't be too hard to get your hands on this badass blade. I mean, it's a Molten Blade. Look at that thing. Who would not want to own that blade? So it being a rare is pretty nice, in my opinion. And the fact that you can just wait until you kind of get the weapon you want, and you could be like, Rob, you don't have time to wait, but you're playing warrior. You have all the time in the world. Tank up and chill. Tank up's not going to be a thing anymore, but armor up and chill. You know what I'm saying? Unite the Murlocs. So earlier in the video, I mentioned that Murlocs were coming back in a big way, and I didn't really give you a whole lot of light into that, and this is where the light is coming from. So this is a 1-drop Shaman quest, the legendary quest. It says summon 10 Murlocs, reward Megafin. Rob, what is a Megafin? I got you. Dun, 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 dun. Megafin. So he's a 5-drop 8/8, very similar to the Hunter legendary that we went over. And it says fill your hand with random Murlocs. The fact that he's going to fill your hand, so he's not going to make you overdraw because he costs 5 mana, and you can basically play most likely other... you're not getting this guy down by turn 5, I'll tell you that. If you do, you should just win the game right there. But if you end up playing this guy, because he's 5 mana, you'll be able to, get your hand filled with Murlocs, and then you'll be able to play a couple Murlocs so you don't overdraw the next turn. That's the only downfall I saw of this guy. When we were playing there was a Shaman card a while ago. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, as I'm not doing 100% of myself right now, but he generated, I think, 4 or 5 Murlocs, and sometimes you'd actually not be able to generate all of the ones you wanted, or you'd end up overdrawing the next turn, because he was like 7 mana, Overload 2 or something, Overload 3. It was just ridiculous. So there's actually a pretty big downfall to him. But this guy, there's not really a downfall, which I wouldn't expect there to be, doing that. He's a legendary minion from the legendary quest, that your basically whole deck is revolved around playing this guy and synergizing well with him. So definitely, whether or not Murlocs come back with this particular card, I don't know. It would be cool to see a Murloc deck make it to at least tier 2 or, high tier 3. So we could actually play it and run it fairly well. We've had some problems with Murlocs in the past, mostly just being meme decks that have a very, flaky. If they perform either really bad or really good. There's no consistency in either. They're very spiky, if you get what I'm saying. So it'll be interesting to see how these Murlocs all pan out, and if Megafin is actually viable in some form of competitive Shaman deck. The next one's going to be Glacial Shard, which kind of goes along with our whole elemental theme we've got going on here. We haven't discussed any cool elementals yet in this particular review, so this is where this guy comes in. He's a 1-drop 2/1 battle cry. Freeze an enemy, and he is the elemental. He doesn't necessarily create an elemental, but he is an elemental himself, so maybe we can see some elemental freeze mage deck. You start comboing this card with Shatter and things like that, which I think might be semi-viable, this expansion, based on the direction I've seen some of these cards going, especially it being, an elemental and has Battlecry freeze an enemy. In that enemy, that you've got, 2 mana card that basically destroys a card, which is huge. But then you got to be careful of, running this deck and then going against, like, let's say a Death Rattle Priest where, their card dying doesn't really do much because they're just generating an additional card off of that. So, it's going to be a hit or miss with this stuff, guys. It's going to be a hit or miss. Next one's more Murlocs. We got the 3-drop, 3/2 Battlecry. If you control another Murloc, discover a Murloc. So very, very much so reminds me of the, what is it called? It was a robot gorilla or gorilla bot. Gorilla bot. It said if you control a Murloc to discover a mech, or no, if you have a Murloc, it's retarded, bro. If you have a mech, discover a mech, and it was like a 4-drop 3/4. So I definitely see this being the lookout, definitely being found in Murloc decks, for sure. In any class, right? This is just a 3-drop 3/2. The attack is there, the health is lacking. A 3-drop 3/3. If you control a Murloc, discover Murloc is kind of OP. So they had to give it that 3/2 mark because you are discovering a Murloc, and that Murloc could be something like a War Leader, a Finja, a Murloc Knight, things like that. So definitely see where they're coming from there. We have the Stone Shaper, 4-drop 3/5 Battlecry. If you play an elemental last turn, gain taunt and divine shield. So obviously if you don't play an elemental, he's not that great. If you play a mental, he turns into basically an above statted or an above abilitied creature. The stats for a 4-drop, normally we can see like a Chillwind Yeti, which is a 4/5, which I kind of go by whenever I'm talking about a highly statted vanilla minion with no ability. This guy has an ability, therefore his stats are not going to be a 4/5. He has 1 less attack, but he actually gets taunt and divine shield if you had an elemental. So like I said, you have the elemental, he becomes worth playing. If you don't have the elemental, he's kind of not so good. And then we have the Gluttonous Ooze. I like the ooze. Look, he has a dinosaur in his belly too, and what looks to be a toad. 3-drop 3/3 epic battle cry. Destroy your opponent's weapon and gain armor equal to its attack. So you're paying 1 more mana, you're getting 1 more HP from it. You just still get to destroy the weapon, so it's basically the same as the Acidic Swamp Ooze. Costs 1 more mana, but you have 1+1 HP, and destroy your opponent's weapon and gain armor equal to its attack. So, you destroy the War Axe, you get 3 armor. You destroy an Arcanite Reaper, you get 5 armor. I think, it's probably one of those cards directly combating the power level of Pirate Warrior right now. I mean, it's pretty insane what they've done in this expansion to kind of tech against the Pirate Warrior. You got cards like the Crawler, which we covered in the last episode, which destroy a pirate, gain +2/+2, and it's a 2-drop, which is absolutely crazy. And then you have more cards like this Gluttonous Ooze that not only destroy the weapon, but you're going to gain armor, which is basically just health on top of destroying their weapon, plus it's a 3/3 and not a 3/2. It does cost the additional mana, but my god, I mean, they're just going all out destroying Pirate Warrior. Not that I care that much because I don't really play Pirate Warrior, but like, they understood what they've done when you see cards like this printed. Like, man, we fucked up with Pirate Warrior. How do we fix this? Destroy pirates. Destroy the weapons. Kill them. Kill them all. So it's kind of just like, this is their, oh shit, please, let's print something that just utterly annihilates the Pirate Warrior. And that's, I think, what this card in combination with the Crawler is just going to do. I mean, you play either of those cards against pirates, and jeez, they're gonna be all hands on deck trying to recover, and they're not gonna be able to handle that. So that goes over all of the cards that have been released up until now. I know as soon as I publish this video, there's going to be like 5 more cards that are going to be released, which we'll cover, of course, in the next episode, of course. Again, I did my best during this video, guys. Hopefully in the next one, I feel a lot better. My voice is back, and I can go into a little bit deeper, and my brain is working at 100%, so I can kind of dive, like I said, deeper into some of these cards and give you even more information. But in this particular video, I did the best with what I got, and what I got is literally not the full Roberto for you guys. So I'll see you guys in the next episode. Of course, I'm Robert Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.